About my psychosis started in about 2014 when I was at the University of Toledo, and I started really getting into the Bible and other stuff like that. And I started thinking people could read my mind, and that what I was thinking, people started talking about. Um, and so when I came home that semester, I I went to, it was Christmas time, and I went to my aunt and uncle's house, and I couldn't understand anything anybody was saying because I had um, so many audio hallucinations. I kept thinking people were saying what I was thinking. And so eventually I told my parents, and they took me to the Linder Center of Medicine. And so I got help, and the first doctor I saw who diagnosed me with schizophrenia, he told me that I'll never be able to hold a job. He told me it's a shame that I haven't finished school already. And he said, basically make me feel comfortable at home. He told my parents this, to basically make me feel comfortable at home, and I won't be able to really do anything much for the rest of my life. So eventually we found GCD. That was later on 2015. And I started having a case manager and a job coach, and I had a few jobs. And my job coach asked, have you ever thought about being a peer recovery supporter? Sorry, that's one of my phones going off. Okay. So they asked me if I've ever thought of being a peer recovery supporter, and I told her I had not thought of that, and I gave it a shot, and I've been working at Greater Cincinnati Behavioral for 2 years now. And what I do day to day is I work at a wellness center, and so clients come into the wellness center and they go to group activities, and I conduct groups. We also have free breakfast and free lunch, and we go on outings, and we do different stuff like that every day. And yeah, that's a little bit about my story and where I've come from.
And
sure.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
So let's see. I first started having psychotic experiences when I was in college, but it was mainly through the influence of drugs and alcohol. I'm in recovery from substance use. I used to experiment with a lot of hallucinogenics and alcohol and ecstasy and marijuana. And towards the end of my use, I started to experience some paranoid hallucinations and so forth, where I thought that there were, like helicopters following me, and I thought that I had been on the evening news. And but I just always sort of felt that it was related to my substance use. And so when I quit drinking and drugging, I thought that all that was just going to be in my past and that I was going to be okay. And I've been sober now since December of 2003, and from drugs and alcohol. But around a few years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, in 2017, I was 13 years sober, and I started to have I had a psychotic break. I didn't start to have one. I had a psychotic break. I ended up getting a promotion at a job that I had been working. And I don't know if it was the increased stress. I wasn't sleeping well. I was kind of staying up all night and waking up early and working like some difficult hours. And I started to get these paranoid delusions that my boss was monitoring my day-to-day movements, tracking my car, tracking my internet activity. And then I woke up one morning. My parents asked me to stay with them because I wasn't behaving properly. I started to think that my dad had donated to terrorist organizations. And I woke up one day and I thought that my dad was going to shoot me with a gun. And I thought that he was responsible. He was in the mafia and the mob, and he was responsible for different murders that had happened in the community. And eventually, through some course of events, I was hospitalized. And in the hospital, they said that I had paranoid schizophrenia, and that they put me on antipsychotic medication. which they said I would have to take to get well. And I did. This time I accepted it. I had been introduced to antipsychotic medication 10 years, about 10 years ago, and I resisted it. I didn't think that I had a mental illness, but this time I accepted to just take the medicine, even though it was uncomfortable and there were difficult side effects. And I ended up having the privilege to go to a place called Hopewell. It's a therapeutic farm in Mesopotamia, Ohio, and I stayed there for 10 months and was able to rehabilitate there in a beautiful setting. And there, the doctor thought that I was bipolar with psychotic features instead of paranoid schizophrenia. To this day, I don't really know which kind of diagnosis is the right one, but I am just rolling with the punches and just trying to make the most of my recovery. When I was at Hopewell's therapeutic farm, I started talking to my clinician, and she suggested that maybe I look into other lines of work that would be able to accommodate, you know, a more flexible schedule. And I had a background in social work, so I applied at Catholic Charities and was hired to do peer support. And it seemed like a perfect job for me because, you know, it had said that I should have lived experience with substance use or a mental health diagnosis. And so I've been really privileged. I've been working this job for about the past 2 years. It's the best job I've ever had. And it's a real privilege. On a day-to-day, I'm usually in the community working with peers. You know, before COVID, we would go out. My job is community-based, so I would go to a peer's house, and we would maybe meet for coffee, like go to an AA meeting. Maybe sometimes I would drive them to a doctor's appointment, and we would just work on different recovery tasks. You know, how things were going with their recovery. We work for a first diagnosis team for individuals that have recently had a psychotic event. And so I'm able to relay and share my experience to benefit the peers that I'm working with. And it's a great job. So thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben and Jonathan. Thank you. Appreciate your presentation, and thank you for sharing your experience. Hopefully it's maybe reinforced for some or some that are new to peer support